Hello and welcome to SOUQ Pulse. Yes, it's SOUQ Pulse. We need to make that direct distinction. Yes, SOUQ Pulse. You heard me right. It's still SOUQ Pulse. That's like the fourth or fifth time I'm saying it. Why? Today happens to be Workouts Day. It's our day, my day, your day, everyone's day. As long as you're still blessed with breath and you are on Mother Earth, it doesn't matter how old you are, except you are suckling. But as long as you're not suckling, you have to work. And as long as you are alive, it doesn't matter if you are 80, 90, 100. If you pass wisdom to the younger generation, you're working. I will say thank you. And if you wake up every morning to get some job done, get to an office, we'll say thank you. If you wake up having ideas and putting things on paper and forwarding it to get done, we'll say thank you. If you get your hands dirty and do that particular work every other person shy away from, we say thank you. If you are struggling and putting food on the table, irrespective of what the society is saying, we say thank you. If you're behind the cameras, on the system, on MCR, getting the makeup done and making sure that we on this side will look good to get this job done, we also say thank you. And on the other side, if you're making sure that every other person that is getting the job done gets paid at the end of the month, and you struggle and you still see this thing and you meet them, we say thank you. It's Workers' Day, and we say Happy Workers' Day to every worker out there. Thank you very much. It's SOUQ Pulse. My name is Chooks, John Rogers Chooks. And today we will come and talk about work, we'll come and talk about wages, we'll come and talk about the person paying and the person that is being paid in the light of productivity. And we have to get Africa moving. We have to get Africa productive. We are looking at how can we evaluate and achieve more positive work on the wages paid. How can we evaluate the work? How can we achieve more positive work on that amount that comes in your paycheck, on that amount you are being paid? And we'll get to talk about this and go around it somewhere between and do justice to this. And there's no other person that are on a teacher, not just in-house, out, and makes others also get involved in getting taught and teaching others to also teach. That makes him a good worker. A worker we all look up to. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome to SOUQ Pulse after a brief holiday. Mr. Sam, you're welcome back.
Cheers.
Sir,
Good evening.
yes.
And
Now you're back.
happy Workers' Day.
Thank you very much. Now you're back. We'll look for a rope. Thank you very much. Yeah, he's the director of Center for Policy and Strategy. Now, sir, we are going to go straight into this. For across Nigeria, if you go to different venues, it could be the stadium, it could be the squares, it could be some other places. That also happen in other African countries. You get to see workers gather and they celebrate today. And one major theme that most people, they might talk about it, they may not talk about it, is always wages. Increase wages, reduce wages. Wages is being paid. It's not being paid on time. Wages does not this, wages does not that. Most times we don't get to hear about the work we're doing. How is it going? Are we doing better? Are we improving? Is our work meeting? Is it commensurate to the wages we are being paid? Is our work get better than what we did last year? These are all different kind of narratives. But now let's talk about what we have to do today. And let's start from this. The wages for government workers, because different organizations pay different things. And there's no law that stipulates that you must pay this or you must pay, not go above this. The wages being paid majorly by governments across Africa, is it meeting the present day realities in the economy?
Chooks, thank you very much. I'd like to make a few remarks before I answer the question. Like you said, the focus has always been on increase on wages and salary. And more often than not, people don't focus on the employee commitment to the employer. And I'm happy that you're trying to come through this way. But then within HR practice, there's what you call organization and method, where jobs are evaluated, where jobs are measured based on the productivity. That's what you call productivity per man or productivity per worker. By this, you divide the efficiency or the effectiveness of a worker based on the output. We'll not go into the arithmetic of that here, but as we progress the conversation, you can measure productivity directly in terms of the work output that employees.
We will certainly get there.
Yes.
But let's go back to that particular question. Let's just have like a premise. People just say present day reality is the wages is not meeting up to it. So is that a fallacy, or is there a statement of fact, or is it somewhere in between?
It's not a fallacy. Within the framework of earnings, which is a global concept, that's what you call cost of living adjustment, simply called COLA. Because of inflation, year on year, the value of the money is eroded over a period of time. So adjustments are made in line with current economic or market reality. So those adjustments are made. Then if you look at it from, just a moment.
Before you conclude, I need you to also add this. Now, if we say adjustments are made, adjustments might not be made across board.
No, what I mean, adjustment, there are minimum thresholds.
Okay.
Globally, you use in adjusting wages and salary, because inflation will erode the value of what you pay as salary. So there's a minimum threshold or a benchmark that is used internationally. So I need to underscore that.
Okay.
Number two, if you look at it from industrial relation point of view or labor relation, or if you look at it from the Nigerian labor law, that's what you call collective bargaining.
Okay.
Particularly from a unionized environment where wages and salaries are discussed, some cases every 2 years, where you come before management and you bargain in terms of the increment that you have to make as an organization, an input into the workforce in terms of improvement. So those things does not exist in isolation. They are very basic principles at which you can arrive at wage or salary increase based on the constitutional provision, or as is in the law, labor law in particular. So there are benchmarks that you use to see how you can increase those wages. On the other hand, sometimes when you want to increase wages, it's essentially based on the employee contribution to the bottom line. So once there's increase in performance or productivity in the workplace, and there's an improvement in the pot of money, it's just a metaphor for the earnings, then there's a need sometime for management to balance that we have made some contribution. Therefore, the workers who were baking the cake are entitled to some new salary increase. But then more often than not, people focus more on increment, but we don't focus more on the productivity of the workforce. Okay. So we need to balance the productivity vis-a-vis the clamor for wage or salary increase.
Okay, we need to focus on productivity, which is the main reason why we are in the workforce in the first place.
Yes.
Okay, now you mentioned two factors that lead to increment. First, you talked about inflation, so something that needs to be done. Then you now talked about this second one. Now, let's go back to inflation. For African countries, most times when inflation affects, it affects majorly based on their currency. But within those same African countries, a lot of organizations pay workers in their own employ, not with their currency. Some pay with foreign currency. For example, some companies, foreign companies, or companies with some inroads outside their country might pay in dollars, or pay in pounds, or pay in Canadian dollars, or pay in Japanese yen. We see that happen in African countries. So if we talk inflation, inflation is not affecting them. because inflation majorly affects in local currencies. It does not directly affect in dollars. So whatever it affects people earning in local currencies won't affect the person earning in dollars, because his dollar still has the value against that inflated money.
Chooks, I'm not too sure of that, but I do know
Can we give an example?
no, there's a concept of expatriation. That's when you work as an expatriate worker.
Okay.
Maybe your operation is domiciled in a particular host country, but then you're on a posting to another country. So you are paid based on those earnings. But I do know for sure that your allowances is domiciled in the local environment where you're operating. So part of those your salaries are earning or allowances in the local currency.
Okay.
So I'm not too sure that even where you are paid in international denominated currency, you're supposed to change those monies to spend in the local currency.
At point of payment.
Yes, when you are paid.
Exactly.
So you may receive your basic pay in the host country where you are employed, but then you're on expatriation to another country. So some of your pay are paid to you in allowances in the local country where you work.
But
and you're supposed to convert those money into the local currency to
at
spend.
At point of payment, at time of payment. Good. That's still what we're talking about. Yes. Now, if I'm earning $100 and I'm earning $100 in a space of, let's say, 2 months or 3 months, and within these 2-3 months, the naira depreciates by 50%, I'm still earning $100. The $100 the naira does not affect the $100 depreciation. At point of payment, if I change it for 100 naira before, at point of payment, I'll be changing it for 150. If it increases the next month, at point of payment, I'll be changing it for 200. So I don't know if you're getting my mathematics. It's not directly affecting me, that has a stable payment in a different currency. That is not directly affected by it.
Yeah, but if you look at the fraction of the workforce that you're talking about,
I agree with you.
It's so small, so we cannot use that.
No, I'm not. I'm just giving an example.
Yes.
Now let's now bring this back. 100% agree with the point you've made. I 100% agree. Now, how can we start saying African states should pay a living wage, given the fact that inflation has come to play a toll, not just a good one, a very harsh toll on African states within the last few years? How can African states start paying a living wage?
I think, simply put, we have to improve on productivity. You might call it national productivity within a geographical boundary. So once the productivity increase, then the volume, the level of efficiency and effectiveness equally improve. And that will improve on the workforce, and the outcome of the production output will impact positively. Therefore, companies and government are able to pay what you call living salary or wages.
Okay. Now,
so it's a function of productivity. So if the productivity is right, then government and organizations are able to pay what you call living wage or salary.
Okay. Then we are still on this particular part before we deviate from it. Is there any form of relation or correlation between corruption and the wages paid? You get to hear things like, they are not well paid, so how do you expect them not to dip their hands and augment their salaries? So is there any form of relationship between corruption and wages paid, looking at civil servants and other offices, on other that pay close to what the civil servants are paid?
Oh yes, there are studies that have shown that there's a correlation between corruption, particularly Africa, and the wages paid. But that's one side of the argument. But if you look at it from an ethical point of view, that argument is not sound and is not justifiable. But people have made claim because they are not well paid, they put their hand in the cookie jar. So, but There's no justification for that from an ethical point of view, a moral point of view, because when you take up an employment, there's a contract. And from simple business law, there are three elements in a contract. So the offer, the acceptance, and the consideration. So if you are tied into a contract and you move into a contract regime, because that contract is suitable for you, that's why the number 2 level of that in terms of contract acceptance has been made based on the considerations. So this argument that people are corrupt because the amount of money in terms of salary or wages that are paid to them is small. There's no moral justification for that because you have already signed to a contract regime. If you know that that salary is not sufficient for you, you should look elsewhere to get another job that you feel will meet your requirement. So the studies are there that there's a relationship between corruption and poor remuneration in terms of salaries and wages. That is given. But then if you look at it from an ethical consideration, that is not justifiable, that because the earnings that your paycheck is not sufficient, then you put your hand in the cookie jar.
Okay. This particular cookie jar, we are yet to see it. I will get a very good padlock for it. Now, let's look at payment and payment period. Outside Africa, we get to see, well, in some countries in Africa, we still see it a bit. We get to see that payment wages is calculated based on man hour. Is it possible for Africa to look at and adopt that, paying based on hour or hours put in?
No, but that's the universal concept of the calculation of
Nigeria,
wages and salary. No,
Nigeria,
the basic concept.
They are calculated on months.
No, you earn your. No,
Did he come
earn
in?
your,
Yes.
No, no, no.
Did he clock in? Yes.
No, whether you clock in, whether you don't clock in, whatever it is, the base rate in terms of methodology of calculating your wages and pay, they're based on the average of the man hour that you spend in terms of productivity. That's the base rate of
Now,
calculation. So
that's based calculation.
yes.
Good.
On the other hand, no, I just want to make a distinction
Okay.
for the purpose of the viewing public. Then if you are operating at a factory level, there are other indicators of measuring your calculations. But if you're on the other side of management, you earn based on the calculations that have been made, based on your job role, your job evaluation that has been done. That box, in terms of your role, maybe you are a supervisor and you earn your pay at the end of the 30 days, that calculations are based on your grade. So as you move on the trajectory, your income or remuneration will improve in that regard. So it's a universal concept, and that is what is used. But then at the factory where you do a clocking system, where your productivity is designed by the amount of time you spend on the shop floor, then you have your wages calculated based on that level. So those are the core issues. So you cannot be writing that chooks are spent X hour, then this is the value of the money. That is calculated based on the evaluation, the measurement of your job, the job role that you have already been assigned to. Then you collect your salary at the end of the month. So that is the way it's done.
Okay. Now we are looking at, and the explanation you gave is based on all things being equal.
All things cannot be equal.
Thank you very much. Standard of what is set. Now I'm looking at what we see on ground. Let me break it down. There are 774 local governments in Nigeria. I'm using that as an example. And all these local governments, 774 of them, are accounted for, in fact, accounted for when it comes to human capital spending. Now, for a lot of this local government, we see the buildings, but we don't get to see the people. I'm just using local government as an example. Now, at the end of the day, at the end of every month, salaries are paid, not just local government. Same thing happens in civil service. At the end of the month, salaries are paid. These people, these workers are supposed to be productive. Not just them, in some other private organizations too. You get to see salaries being paid, but the worker is not putting in the work. The worker is not there and the worker is not being productive. So how can Africa start emphasizing and making sure that if I'm paying you zero amount, $0, zero naira, zero cities, X amount of zinc that just came out in Zimbabwe, or paying you this rand, you are productive for that hour?
All right, I think this is a very simple question to answer. The point is that jobs are evaluated. And once you do those job evaluation, people fit into those job roles. But what you have, particularly in the public sector that you just mentioned, there are political considerations in terms of the number of what the government is carrying as labor costs. So the politics of it, I won't go into in that direction. But in the private sector, in particular, where jobs are located based on those job evaluation, then the productivity in the private sector can easily be measured based on the deliverables of those jobs, based on your budget or targets that have been given in terms of your job role. So within that private sector regime, when your performance indicators, what you call key performance indicator, KPI, there are many concepts, so we don't want to use so many. At the end of the day, there's what you call critical success factor, which are the measurement elements of your job evaluation that is worked based on percentage of about 100. So for example, if I have a salesman in my team, and I'm going to measure the person, some of the elements that I will use, maybe for the salesperson or a business development person, will have been 60% to drive revenue for a particular organization. So we have a target, a revenue target within the company that that particular person will be carrying. So I measure the person quarterly, monthly, vis-a-vis the budget or the target that is carrying. So at the end of a quarter, I'm able to know that whether SOUQ is meeting up with his job demand. So if there are variants, I will call the person to order based on your critical success rule. You are not meeting up to that level of commitment to the company. So you have measures in place. So if, under that one, I talk about customer satisfaction and other elements in the critical success factor. So I'm able to measure back to back the productivity of the employee. But on the other hand, in the public sector, when politics essentially is part of the recruitment process, when you talk about 774 local government, where you see people in the corridors of local councils on a payday. After that, you don't see that. So what the government needs to do is to reevaluate, recalibrate those job processes in that in various departments, whether you are not carrying excess labor costs, then you can do what we call right sizing in a way that if you have so many people who are not productive, then you need to right size those elements. What you can do, you can reskill or retool the employee for their job so that reform, but it's always very difficult to do those reform in the public sector, but in the private sector, it's very easy. So if I have a quarterly performance appraiser, At the end of every quarter, we see what you're doing. We're able to evaluate you. So if you are a non-leaguer on the performance league table, then management might do the needful in terms of making some decision on your employment.
Okay.
So, and that's why you use the concept of hire and fire.
Okay. We use the concept of hire and fire when you think the organization is poised to grow for leadership that know where they are heading to. Now let's go back to the same private sector where you don't want to go to. When are we going to take that responsibility? Who is going to take that responsibility? If we keep depending and looking up to political considerations when it comes to the workforce in local government, in government parastatals, in across Africa, this same behavior over time will be brought into the private sector, because if I hire somebody, he will expect, or he will knowingly or unknowingly start behaving the way other people around him behave in the government sector, and productivity will not be achieved in the private sector. Do we see that happen regularly? So at a point in time, there has been a corruption all through. So when should we and who should we start dealing with in the public sector?
I think, Chooks, I disagree with you slightly. You cannot carry the public sector mentality into a private sector regime where productivity is a major driver of results.
But
So if you don't, just a moment.
we've seen several
No, just a moment.
institutions, private institutions, go down because of the
No,
workforce
just a
in
moment.
Africa.
I'm coming to that. I just
Okay.
want to make a distinction, a clear distinction, that if you have that kind of mentality into the private sector, then you're not likely to survive. If you talk about mismanagement of organizations
Okay.
that have gone under, that has to do with the leadership that couldn't make the right decision at the right time in terms of the productivity of the workforce. So in the public sector, there are public sector reforms in place in terms of how you can reskill the public sector for optimal performance.
How many are you going to reskill?
No, you can't reskill.
How
if
many are you
once the
to
government
reskill?
is determined
Local
to make
governments,
those reforms,
some local governments don't even know the amount of people in their payroll. This is where issues
they
of
do know
ghost
because
workers now come to play.
they know the number of
So
people on their
are
payroll.
you going to reskill a
When
ghost?
those workers are productive in the first instance, I think that's the conversation that we're doing. They know because it's what is on the payroll that goes to the bank. So if the people are not on the payroll, their name won't get to the bank. The point I'm making here is that
So what exactly are you reskilling them for?
no, you reskill them.
To do what?
No, for other purposes beyond the public sector.
Okay, before we
Because
go- before we
they
go
are
on the
not.
break.
There's no value addition. So you reskill them for other purposes and let them leave this public service and do some other job where they become more productive. And that's why I mentioned political consideration. That is a major factor.
When
in
can we
recruitment.
start dealing with political considerations?
No, it's the government.
How?
It's the government.
Who is the government?
No, the person who is the driver. So you talk about the governor, you talk about the local government chairman, you talk about the president of the country.
Okay, how can these people you've mentioned now deal with redundancy in these places?
That's the point I'm making. There's a reform, a public sector reform. So once you have that courage to do the needful in terms of the right sizing, that you need to drive your process. So if you have, like the Orovwuje report, saying that the government should be able to merge ministries, agencies, and department of government, that will help to reskill the process. And at the end of the day, those who can meet up with the right sizing portfolio of the public service should be retooled, and you pay them whatever commitment you have made to them so that they can take their money and go and do some of that. And it has happened elsewhere. So we cannot continually carry these labor costs from local government to state and to the federal departments and agencies of government. The productivity is far below expectation. So we need to drive up productivity by doing the right thing, putting reform in place, and having the courage, what people just call political will, to do the needful.
Okay, you heard him. the productivity is far, far below the remuneration cost. And what people call political will should go well beyond and above political consideration. We are looking at how to evaluate and achieve more work. Remember, more work aside the evaluation, achieve more work on the wages paid. Why are we dwelling on this? Because we get and need Africa to get productive. Where you are, it doesn't matter how big or how small your business is. Where you are working, it doesn't matter whether you are in a building or outside the building or on the street. As long as you have something your hands are doing, we want you to get more productive. And so we talk. Now, let's come this way, sir. Is wage increase the only form of remuneration?
No, the other components, the major component is the monetary component. The other components that are part of your salary package. But the emphasis in some cases has been placed on monetary. So you have housing that are provided for public servant, for example, even in the private sector. You have other social allowances. Maybe I enroll into a club. You have medical allowances to certain level. So these are parts of what make a total package. Some you may get in terms of cash, some you may get in terms of kind, depending on the contract that is signed between the employee and the employer. So which is essentially part of that contract or your letter of engagement that has all the elements in that simple letter that you are given by your employer. So you have a line for housing, you have a basic pay. So in most time, you tax your basic pay, while some of your allowances are not taxed. So that improve on your total package that you take away most times. But the emphasis at certain level is the cash. At certain level, there are other consideration where even executive, top executive, that's what we call key man insurance, where top executives are insured by the organization. You have a holiday trip that is paid by some organization. But again, these elements are based essentially on your contribution to the organization. So each time we talk about welfare, we should equally talk about employee contribution. What is the employee bringing to the table? So if you're able to bring so much to the table, your employer will give you so much based on your contribution. So you have even considerations where even some key personnel can even take their salaries ahead of time in a negotiation package. So that means you must be very strategic to the organization. So, but by and large, there's always a mix of monetary and non-monetary pay package. But then at the lower level, people focus more on the financial, direct financial reward that they get. But at a certain level, as you move the ladder, if you use the Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs, that speaks to the point I'm trying to make, which is equally used in terms of those variables you use in doing package. There are even other elements of what you call fixed and variable earning, where some people collect some form of little money, particularly those in business development, sales, and marketing, where you have a greater percentage that you earn based on your variable income. So that pushes you to higher level of productivity.
Okay, let's get to this particular aspect. Employer-employee. Is the employee just a number? To what extent do you think or should you feel that the employer should know the employee beyond work to be able to cater for the things that will make him get more productive?
No, and that's within the realm of employee-employer relation. Within the HR practice, you have employee-employer relationship, where you talk about the welfare of the staff beyond the normal pay. So in some organization, for example, somebody is bereaved, a contribution is made to support that staff. So this will encourage that kind of mutual or cordial relationship between the employer and the employee. So there's a welfare regime beyond where even the organization would make a contribution on behalf of the staff beyond the normal pay check, where even colleagues sometimes even make contribution towards some other welfare regime of a particular staff. So there are relationships that are there within management and the workforce to see, to encourage a mutual and a cordial relationship. Sometimes even management even pay for clubs, social clubs, on behalf of some employee that are strategic to the business, so they can enroll you into a Koi club, Ikeja Country Club, and some other social club that management pay for. So these are welfare packages that enhances the well-being of the workforce.
Okay, let's look at this. Also stemming from the last question, does the worker need any form of assurance on job safety?
No, safety is a function of productivity. That's the way I look at it. So if you are productive and the company is doing well, there's job assurance or job safety, as you put it. But if you're not putting your best forward in the organization and the company is not able to meet its obligation, to what extent can you guarantee what you call job safety? So I think it's a mutual arrangement between the employer and the employee. So you put in your best, then the business will be sustained, then job safety is guaranteed.
Okay, how can the
So
organization?
you see, deal with the issue of productivity.
We are always back to
Yes,
productivity.
productivity.
That's
So
okay.
once you become productive, the company is able to meet its budgets and targets, then the job is considered safe. But a situation where a company cannot even break even, then the issue of job safety is not something that you can talk about because you're not putting your best forward in terms of the company vision and mission to drive the process in whatever field of play that you're engaging in the marketplace. So
But you can also be putting your best foot forward and dying on the job, and the company might still not break even.
that's not true.
Okay, we've seen that happen several places.
No, what I
Okay,
mean
let's
by
look at
that is that,
industries. Let's look at industries that have gone down with time.
yes, if there are major issues in terms of,
Beyond your control.
beyond the control, but more to than we're talking in an ideal situation
Okay.
where things, we're not looking at silos of where companies has gone under as a result of certain extraneous factors that are beyond the company, the management, and the employee of that organization. Something may just happen and the business is not sustainable. But again, it has to do with the business model and the business plan of the organization and those who are driving the vision.
What about the climate What about the climate?
Yeah, the environment, the business environment, that's what I just spoke to.
Okay.
Your business model, the business environment, how you drive your business model within an environment. There are some harsh business environment. How do you navigate? And that's where strategic thinking and strategic management become imperative to drive that process.
Okay, now let's now come back to the side of the organization, companies that have employed you, the one employing me. What's the best practice on their side of getting the best out of everyone that walks through their door on a daily basis, or that is somewhere doing a remote job, what is the best practice? What's the best way? What advice can you say, hey, hit this like on the first day to get the best of this person?
All right, it's essentially called talent management. When you are able to attract the best talent and you reward your talents appropriately, then they help you to drive that process. Therefore, organizations must find a way to nurture, first and foremost, talent, retain those talents, and reward those talents appropriately. Once you're able to do that, then you're able to get the best results from talent. So that's an aspect of HRO that sometimes is very difficult to manage, because sometimes it's always very difficult to manage talent. But once you have it as a strategic focus, as a management, they are able to drive in the best brains, the best hands into your organization. You reward them appropriately. You expose them to a learning culture that can consistently sustain those talents over a period of time. They are able to retain them in your pool for a long time.
Okay, now let's take this same question a notch further. We have seen organizations over time whose stock in trade is to hold the money they have. Good money, organization is doing well, but what do? They go around and poach the best. They see some other person or some other talent that another organization has groomed over time, and they do whatever they can do to poach. At what point should organizations start having that relationship whereby the talents they have will not just believe in the ideals of where they are working, but buy into the vision and grow with the organization?
Well, the challenge for talent management is that sometimes where people have gotten to that level, they have what you call bragging rights to some extent. But once a management is focused on its human resource element, particularly talent, and they're able to reward them appropriately and make some investment in their career trajectories positively, there's a good succession planning. That's one element in talent management, where people know that if they spend 5 to 10 years in their career trajectory, the box in terms of career paths to meet their personal aspirations and that of the organizational aspirations were carved out, then people will always remain. Even when you try to entice them by some new monetary value, because they key into the vision and the process of the current organization that they are working, they will remain. And that's why I mentioned a proper reward mechanism that will sustain talent. And talent management is one of the most challenging elements of the human resource principle and practice. So talents are very difficult to manage. But once you have a good succession plan in place and people know their career path in a sustainable manner, then it's difficult to always entice them. They will always remain, because you have an executive development program for them, what they call manpower development, to meet up that career path. So you're investing in training, you're investing in other non-monetary values. So you're able to retain those talents within your workforce.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure having you on SOUQ Pulse. Thank you very much, Mr. Sam.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To everyone out there that was part of the show, now do us this favor. Make sure you get to share the link of the show on your social media handles so that your friends, your families, even your enemies, they will learn one thing or two. And also, those that you work with, let them get to see it. This could be the turnaround you've been looking for all this while. I want to say thank you very much for being part of SOUQ Pulse. Remember, it's Workers' Day. So it means that you need to work to be a worker. And if you're working and you've agreed on a particular wage, then put in your best. And on that other side, if you're struggling to pay those wages, let your worker know. There is no need of each side not communicating well and the work is suffering. Africa is rising. Africa must rise. And it depends on me And you, remember, don't keep quiet. We get to talk. My name is SOUQ, John Rogers SOUQ. We'll do this again tomorrow. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.